Namaste and welcome to Geobrief by Shom. In this series, we'll discuss the latest geopolitical developments. Today's topics include US President Donald Trump's speech at the United Nations, the improving relations between India and Canada, China's K visa, America's shifting stance on Ukraine, and more. So let us begin with the first topic, Trump's controversial UN speech. Trump's speech at the United Nations General Assembly has become a hot topic everywhere. To continue purchasing oil from Russia, he strongly criticized China and India, accusing both countries of funding Russia's war. He didn't even spare NATO. Since NATO member states have still not stopped importing energy from Russia, Trump lashed out at them as well, saying, by buying energy from Russia, you are essentially funding the war against yourselves. If that wasn't enough, Trump went so far as to criticize the United Nations while standing at its very headquarters. He questioned the UN's relevance and effectiveness, accusing it of supporting illegal migration, while at the same time forcefully promoting his own anti-immigration stance. And of course, we know Trump can never deliver a speech without praising himself. So it was expected. There is no one like America. Everyone has started respecting America again. I brought down inflation. I've made the country completely secure. I deserve the Nobel Peace Prize, and so on. Trump's speech was filled with several factually incorrect claims, but perhaps the most dangerous statement was his dismissal of climate change as nothing more than a hoax, insisting that we don't need green technologies. All in all, like every one of his speeches, Trump's UN address too was loaded with exaggerations, misleading remarks, and false claims, heavily laced with nationalism, protectionism, hypocrisy, and self-praise. Next, let us talk about China's K visa. As soon as Trump made it more difficult to obtain the H-1B visa, China quickly seized the opportunity and launched the K visa. On one hand, the hike in the H-1B visa fees will reduce the inflow of foreign workers into the United States. On the other hand, China's K visa will open its doors wide for them. In effect, while America has shot itself in the foot, China has created a plan to attract global talent and boost its innovation ecosystem. The K visa has been rolled out for young foreign innovators holding a bachelor's degree or higher in STEM fields. Compared to the standard Chinese visa, the K visa is more flexible, has a longer validity period, offers broader scope, allows multiple entries, and unlike the H-1B, does not require sponsorship from a local company. The application process has been simplified and several perks have been added. Overall, the entire system has been streamlined to make China a competitive alternative to the US, so that instead of choosing Europe, foreign workers might want to choose China, where they can contribute to innovation in fields like artificial intelligence, biotechnology, and semiconductor research. This is a clear example of soft power play in the US-China rivalry. China is rapidly building self-reliant ecosystems and strengthening its edge in critical technologies. It is already a global leader in AI patents and EV production. And now, the K visa will bring China closer to its goal of tech supremacy. While the US is closing its doors to foreign workers, China is welcoming them with open arms. America's short-sighted decision to repel global talent and China's clever strategy to attract them like a magnet has given Beijing the upper hand in the race for science and technology dominance. If this continues, then in the quest for America first, the US might ironically find itself becoming America second in the global superpower race. Next is an update on the Israel-Palestine conflict. Recently, there has been a wave of countries recognizing Palestine. One after another, nations are officially acknowledging Palestine's state and calling for a two-state solution. Most recently, countries like Australia, Canada, the UK, Belgium, and Portugal have granted recognition to Palestine. The latest addition to this list is France. Since peace talks have not progressed and frustration around the world is rising over Israel's actions in Gaza, global support for Palestinian statehood has been steadily increasing. At present, more than 150 UN member states recognize Palestine as a state. The patience of many Western countries is running out, and this is why we are seeing a shift in European policy. For example, countries like the UK, Germany, Spain, and Italy impose restrictions on supplying arms to Israel. And despite being part of the G7, Canada, the UK, and France have officially recognized Palestinian statehood, going against the position of the United States. This shift in European policy has increased pressure on Israel. Israel has strongly criticized what it sees as attempts to diplomatically isolate it. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has made it clear that he will not allow the creation of a Palestinian state. military operations in Gaza will continue, and Israel will move forward with its plan to expand settlements in the West Bank. Since Israel enjoys full support from the United States, any attempt to secure UN membership for Palestine will be vetoed by Washington. And despite the verbal support from European nations, the situation on the ground is unlikely to change significantly. Now let us talk about Trump's dramatic flip-flop. In a complete reversal of his earlier stance, US President Donald Trump has now said that with Western support, Ukraine can actually win. According to him, Russia is just a paper tiger that has been dragging the war on for more than 3 years. If Russia truly had real military power, it would have ended the conflict within a week. Trump now claims Ukraine can definitely defeat Russia and even reclaim all of its occupied territories. In fact, he went so far as to suggest that with NATO's backing, Ukraine could even take Russian territory itself. This marks a significant shift in Trump's position toward Ukraine. The US's renewed commitment to Ukraine is the latest example of Trump's flip-flopping. Currently, he is talking about supplying arms through NATO and working to isolate Russia, while not long ago, he was pressuring Ukraine to make concessions, telling it to give up on the dream of reclaiming the territories occupied by Russia. Do you remember when Trump used to troll Ukraine by asking who in their right mind would fight a war against a country 10 times bigger? At one point, he even dismissed the war as Ukraine's miscalculation. But today, the same Trump is praising Ukraine. Once he reminded Ukraine of Russia's military might, now he mocks Russia instead. The reason for this sudden shift is Trump's frustration that Putin is not taking him seriously at all. As a result, Trump's stance has flipped from Ukraine does not have the cards to Ukraine can win. It wasn't too long ago that Trump was so soft on Putin and praised him so often that people used to tease him as being a Russian asset. But now once again, Trump has flipped, this time softening his approach toward Ukraine. The big question is, how long will this new stance last? The next topic is why India should not be concerned about the Saudi Arabia-Pakistan Defense Pact. Recently, Saudi Arabia and Pakistan signed a mutual defense pact. However, India has no reason to worry about this strategic mutual defense agreement, because over the past decade, India's partnership with Saudi Arabia has significantly improved. In fact, Saudi Arabia had already briefed India about its talks with Pakistan before the agreement was finalized. This defense pact is not anti-India. Rather, it is a strategic step taken in response to Israel's assertiveness and America's growing unreliability in the region. It's not as if, in the event of a conflict between India and Pakistan, Saudi Arabia would take military action against India. The pact does not contain any provisions for binding troop deployments or nuclear guarantees. Instead, it uses vague language. Everyone knows that the Pakistani military cannot guarantee Saudi Arabia's security against Israel. The Pakistani military itself is well aware of its credibility limitations. This move is more about the Pakistani military trying to distract its own people from internal problems. Saudi Arabia, on the other hand, is not going to alienate a robust partner like India for Pakistan's sake. In fact, Riyadh may even use this pact as a pretext to deploy Pakistani forces in conflicts such as Yemen or the Red Sea. If you look at Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman's policies, one thing is clearly visible. He prioritizes the economy over ideology. His pragmatic approach recognizes that India is a vital partner. Therefore, India has no reason to be concerned about the Saudi Arabia-Pakistan Defense Pact. Now let us talk about what Marco Rubio said about India amid strained ties. Our relationship with India is extremely important. That is the statement by US Foreign Minister Marco Rubio. Such a remark from Rubio at a time when India-US ties are under strain is a positive signal. Recently, America's unilateral actions have caused significant damage to the relationship between the two countries, suddenly imposing 50% tariffs on India, hiking H-1B visa fees, cozying up to Pakistan, and aggressively targeting India. These actions have created friction between the two countries. However, the US knows very well that India is a crucial partner for maintaining stability in the Indo-Pacific. To counter China's assertiveness and to achieve the goal of a free and open Indo-Pacific, America needs India. Damaging ties with New Delhi would also hurt Washington, something that could prove costly for the Trump administration in the upcoming midterm elections. But if America improves its ties with India, it will be a win-win for both nations. Keeping this in mind, Washington seems to be attempting a bit of damage control by issuing such positive statements. There has also been constructive dialogue between the foreign ministers of the two countries. This time, no publicly humiliating tone was used. That said, since Trump is highly transactional and unpredictable, the US cannot be fully trusted at this moment. No one can say when a vital relationship might suddenly turn volatile. Finally, let us talk about the recent meeting between the National Security Advisors of India and Canada. Recently, India and Canada held a high-level security dialogue. During former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's tenure, India-Canada relations had deteriorated sharply, largely because of Trudeau's soft stance toward Khalistani separatists. Under Trudeau, Canada was also grappling with numerous domestic challenges. As his unpopularity grew, he was eventually forced to resign, and Mark Carney of the same Liberal Party took over as Canada's Prime Minister. Under Carney's leadership, efforts are being made to improve bilateral relations with India. This process began earlier this year in June when Canada hosted the G7 summit. Despite India not being a member of the G7, the tradition of inviting India was maintained. On the sidelines of this summit, the Indian and Canadian Prime Ministers held talks, during which they agreed on key issues such as restoring diplomatic channels, enhancing security cooperation, and exploring economic opportunities. Building on that momentum, the national security advisors of both countries have now engaged in productive discussions. India has made it clear that the activities of Khalistan sympathizers in Canada pose a national security threat to India. In this meeting, both sides agreed to strengthen security cooperation. This indicates a reset in India-Canada ties. However, a complete reset will only be possible if Canada makes changes to its asylum policies toward Khalistani separatists. If it boosts collaboration with India on counter-terrorism and intelligence sharing, if it extradites those involved in anti-India activities from Canadian soil, and if it works jointly to crack down on cross-border criminal networks. Still, this high-level security dialogue marks good progress in India-Canada relations. With that, this episode of geobrief comes to an end. See you in the next episode, and thank you for your time.